Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
Notice that child-resistant closures have not changed in over 50 years. Some iteration of a torque-dependent closure that requires a lot of force and dexterity to open. And I thought that was interesting of why in today's day and age, 21st century, most things have evolved and changed, but child-resistant closures haven't. And so I started to think it needed to be very simple. There's so many, there's over 4 billion prescription vials in the U.S. alone.
IHI Nation, don't you absolutely hate to miss out on something good? I want to share with you that my premier training for inventors, the Inventors Bootcamp, well, registration closed at midnight Sunday, last night, so you just missed out. However, I provide for listeners to my podcast only, if you act quickly and you're listening on Monday, the 10th of June, you'll get an extension. You can still sign up to join the Inventors Bootcamp. So you'll get 5 days of live Zoom meeting training. It's going to teach you how to compare and contrast your invention versus the competition to make it stand out. And then from that, you'll create a clear, concise, and compelling 30-second pitch for your product, the kind that gets attention with marketers. So how do you sign up and still get into the bootcamp? Make sure to register today, Monday, the 10th of June. Just go to alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. And oh, by the way, all this training, the 5 days of live Zoom meetings, is available to you for only $47. But you can't wait. This is the last day, and it's only open to podcast listeners like you on Monday, June the 10th. Again, to join us tonight in the bootcamp that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, just go to alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. Many podcast listeners just like you have joined us in the bootcamp and are making progress and gaining traction. I look forward to seeing you in the bootcamp tonight. Look, I get it. Inventing can be lonely and challenging. Do you ever get to that point where you're facing a setback and you're wondering, now what do I do? What's my next step? Who do you call? Not the Ghostbusters. Hopefully, you call me. Over 20 years as an inventor, I've probably been there and done that, and perhaps faced the same challenge you're dealing with right now. I'm bringing back one of the most popular features to the podcast, and that is you can sign up for 30 minutes of free coaching with me. Just go to alanbeckley.com/schedule, and you'll be able to schedule right there. And please write a brief comment what you're looking for help with. We will set you up with 30 minutes of free coaching. Again, just go to alanbeckley.com/schedule. And I look forward to helping you solve that challenging problem. Welcome to episode number 414. Today, I interview Rocky Batzel. A native of Scranton, Pennsylvania, Rocky Batzel is the inventor of SnapSlide, an innovative, safe, and easy-to-open lid for pill bottles. Rocky currently serves as the company's chief executive officer. He earned a bachelor's degree in biology from Marywood University in Pennsylvania, and while enrolled in medical school, he noticed his grandmother struggling with the traditional push and twist child-resistant cap on her prescription pill bottle. That inspirational moment led him to pivot his career into the world of entrepreneurship, and he set out to design the very first prototype of what would eventually become SnapSlide. After securing patent protection, Rocky ultimately formed a company around his groundbreaking innovation. As the company's CEO, he's dedicated to advancing engineering, diversifying applications, and leading SnapSlide's mission to bring this adaptive solution to those who need it most. What started as a problem to solve for his grandmother became a mission to bring adaptive packaging to the world and establish a new standard in pharmaceutical packaging. You'll want to listen to this entire interview as Rocky shares how he recognized that conventional pill bottle closures aren't only child resistant, but in fact, millions of adults cannot open them either. Also, how Rocky learned when to consider remarks from critics and when to ignore them and to trust his gut. And finally, the reason why Rocky chose to go the extra mile and design his bottle closures where they could be opened with only one hand and remain child resistant. Now let's get right to our interview with Rocky Batzel. Well, Rocky Batzel, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us today.
Alan, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You bet. Rocky, can you share a bit of your background with our listeners? Where did you grow up and go to school, and what did you do before you became an inventor? Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. I'm a regular guy. I grew up in northeastern PA, Scranton, PA, the home of The Office. That's what Scranton's claim to fame is. The high school, graduated high school. Didn't know, like a lot of people, didn't know what the heck they wanted to do after high school. So bounced around to a couple colleges trying to find myself. I finally started buckling down and wanted to become a doctor. Spent my time in the library studying and got into medical school. And after a year of medical school, it was weird. My heart wasn't in it anymore. And I was getting pulled in the entrepreneurial direction. So it was a tough decision, but the closest people in my family, they supported me. And Rock, if you want to leave, go for it. A lot of people thought I was crazy, but I took that plunge. I left medical school after my first year and started the wild ride of entrepreneurship.
Having interviewed over 300 inventors now, I find that the path and course inventors take is different than a lot of other people's. I don't know if I've ever interviewed any person thus far who said, oh, I started out as a CPA, and for the last 25 years, I've been a CPA, and then I came up with this invention idea. There'd be nothing wrong with that, but it's almost always that people have done a variety of different things throughout their career, taking them into entrepreneurship and being creative, and then they got into inventing. So that seems to be a fairly common trend, I would say.
100%. I think schools don't teach inventorship. Schools teach the basics, and you got to go by this path and what school tells you. You get into college, you get a normal job. So becoming an inventor isn't something that you study to become. Like, you're just driven to do it, and you're where your heart is, and you just take that plunge.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Inventing is a zigzag, is what I would say. And we're so used to a step-by-step approach to things. We go to school, we go to high school, and then we get out of high school and we perhaps go on to college, or we don't. But if we go on to college, we pursue a degree program and we get out. And there's certain employers that would employ us. And then when we get a paycheck every 2 weeks. So we're used to having a degree of predictability and perceived stability. And yet inventing is not like that at all. It's just not a straight line. It's a zigzag, and it's a course changing. And that's just, as you said, not taught in school at all.
Nope. Yeah, I never thought of it as zigzag, but it certainly is. It's not one path. You're learning so much. Dead ends along the way. You got to backtrack, figure it out. A lot of learning. It's exciting, though. Once you get into it, you're going, you learn a heck of a lot, and you're working for yourself, figuring out your own way. And it's exciting. It's fun.
It is. Rocky, you've invented a unique lid for pill bottles that's designed to allow adults to open easily with one hand, but still maintaining child safety protocols. That's called SnapSlide. Can you briefly describe the aha moment that caused you to develop this innovative lid?
The aha moment. It's a great feeling when you get that. So, like I said, after I left medical school, I was tinkering, trying to figure out what to do. And one day my mom came to me and was like, "You should think of something for these pill bottles. Graham can't get into them. I have to open them for all the time." And then she leaves the cap unengaged, it's on the bottle, and then pills fall all over the place. Paranoid when the grandkids come over, and she puts it back on, and the whole process starts over. I'm like, "Huh, that's interesting, Ma." So I started researching and noticed that child-resistant closures have not changed in over 50 years. Some iteration of a torque-dependent closure that requires a lot of force and dexterity to open, and I thought that was interesting of why in today's day and age, 21st century, most things have evolved and changed, but child-resistant closures haven't. And so I started to think it needed to be very simple. There's so many, there's over 4 billion prescription vials in the US alone. So I knew it had to be very simple. I knew it needed a two-part simultaneous open mechanism for the child resistance portion, like a push and turn or squeeze and turn. So I started to think how I could make two-part mechanism still require less dexterity and have it be simple for the scale and price points. So as I was thinking this, I went in to a wine and spirit store, which is our local liquor stores here in Pennsylvania, and I saw this lady who was amputee. Her left arm was amputated from the elbow down, and I'm on bottle mode, right, thinking of closures, and I see this girl. I'm like, "Hmm, I wonder how she does it." She was handing out wine, sampling, and I made my way over to the fruity drink aisle. Usually I stick to the bourbon, but I went to the fruity drink aisle so I could keep an eye on her to see how she does it. And she put the bottle under her armpit and tried to twist it off. And she was able to do it, but it looked awkward. And I said at that point, I'm like, all right, this thing needs to be one hand because I have no idea. You don't have one arm, how you do these closures. So I think that allowed me to actually change the way I was thinking and allow me to come up with a very simple mechanical invention. My objective that instead of a push and turn, something torque dependent, a slide. So you press it and you slide it open. And that was the aha moment. I had it late at night in bed. It just popped up, came to me. And that started the journey. Once you have it, now the rest of the path, several years of a grind, developing, figuring everything out. So that aha moment is what started the clock.
That makes perfect sense. And you described your mom's frustration with, as you described, the torque dependent opening and how it was hard for her to get the lids off the bottles, and she tended to leave them loose, which had all sorts of problems with it, and which probably millions of other people do the exact same thing. And then when you saw the amputee, you combined that into an aha saying, not only do we need an easier opening that's still child safe, but we need it where somebody can open it with one hand. So if they've got a medical issue or something and they can't use both hands and they could still open it. And I wanted to dive into the details of that just a little bit more here in the next question. And that is, as you were describing, most current medical lids that I've seen for sure require the user to exert strong downward pressure on the lid, combined with squeezing pressure, I think you're describing as torque, along the periphery of the lid. This certainly makes them child safe, as small children lack the strength and dexterity to open them. But unfortunately, older adults and many other people often find them difficult or impossible to open without assistance from caregivers. Can you give us a little brief visual description of how the SnapSlide works and then how it solves this, as you describe, a complex choreography that has always been required to open most pill bottles?
I certainly can. So as I was researching, it wasn't just my grandmother, it wasn't just the amputee I saw. We're talking about millions of people, 80% of stroke patients. You have a stroke, 80% of them, some form of hemiparesis, which is paralysis on one side of the body, cerebral palsy. Even when you break an arm, you're in a cast. So over 12 million people only have use of one arm out there. And then secondary demographic are those with limited dexterity, arthritis being the big one. Over 60 million people have trouble with a lot of force or dexterity to open for closures. Requires a lot of muscle movement, I want to make it very simple and just require a lot less muscle movement. Almost make the child resistance almost like more of a mental challenge and a physical challenge. Figured you only have to breach a mental challenge once. Physical challenge you have to breach every single time you open it. I developed, tough to see over the screen here, but it's just a slide. Still two-part mechanism. Remember, you need that two-part for the objective definition of CR based on the governmental agency. But you press it and you just slide it open. I wanted to have the cap not removed. You're not juggling three separate things. So the cap is always on there. The closure mechanism stays intact with the vessel. You dispense your pills and a close, slide it back. I noticed during my research, a lot of people don't fully engage the torques. You got to line up the threads and get it right, turn it on. A lot of the time, you either don't feel like taking it off again, you just put the cap on, or you don't line up the threads properly, so they're not engaged. So I wanted an auditory sound. I don't know if you could hear the click, but I wanted that at least a 57 decibel sound to ensure that it's closed. So you never make that mistake, because you don't close the bottle, that negates the entire child resistant aspect. Pretty simple.
That's really excellent. And I was visualizing, you can easily visualize a slide, generally a rectangular opening that you can aperture that you have to press a little bit of pressure to initiate it and then slide it open and then slide it back when you're done and closed. And I like the idea that there is a clear click sound that lets you know that it has properly resealed again.
Absolutely. The other cool thing is removing torque from the equation gets rid of threads. You can imagine how threads are, they're layers. There's about at least 2 layers of thread on both the bottle and the closure. So getting rid of that thread and just having a simple bead that snaps on that you don't have to twist off, threads a bunch of plastic. We use about 25% less plastic compared to threaded closures. And that translates to about a gram per bottle. A gram doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you're talking about billions of units, those are billions of grams. And did the math and calculate if every pharmacy switched to SnapSlide, it would save approximately 21 million pounds of plastic in the US alone, just by getting rid of threads. Wild.
That's fantastic. So therefore, it's obviously essentially a green product in the sense that it reduces the amount of plastic and plastic pollution and all the rest of that, savings and costs, but also it's been well documented. We have lots of plastics in all the dumps and everything else and in the ocean. So anything that reduces that a little bit sounds really good.
100%. And I wasn't thinking about plastic as being, I just wanted to have a closure that's easier to open. But it just so happens that removing threads, wow, we could actually save a tremendous deal of plastic. That was one of those things that the planets just lined up in that degree. And sometimes it works out like that.
And I was wondering, as another question, have you encountered pushback from pharmaceutical companies or others who've got a vested interest in maintaining current designs? An objection inventors so often hear with groundbreaking designs is, this is the way we've always done it. Have you encountered that, and how have you addressed that?
What inventor hasn't? Yep, a lot of it. The packaging industry is an interesting realm. You need huge scale to be able to satisfy huge volumes at a low price point. It's not a consumer product. It's a B2B product that you're selling to businesses in which the consumer interacts with every day. So it's an interesting kind of category SnapSlide's in. When I first started, I was approaching companies to see if I could license it. The pushback was immense. People telling me engineers can never be made, can never be manufactured. It's not moldable. I had patent people telling me, oh, it's too simple. There's going to be stuff out there. And if there is, you'll never get a patent. So much pushback every course of the way from when I started to even now. it's getting easier as you're proving the concept a little more. You get more buy-in, but that first surge is tough. And I think every inventor goes through it. That you just the experts that have a vested interest, like you said, they just pushing back for whatever reason it is. And I've learned that you got to trust your gut. Somebody's telling you that it's not doable for whatever reason. If it's not, they can't explain that to your satisfaction, then they're probably wrong. Because when you invent something, it's not been done before. So nobody could say that it can't be until it's proven that it can't be. And you just gotta listen to people, listen to smart people, but not take what they say as gospel, if you will. You gotta trust your gut and go and prove it out yourself. And most often you're gonna find that you were right and it could be done. And you just grin and bear it and press on. And eventually the light will be at the end of the tunnel.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Especially, I think there's been a couple others that talked about that the biggest pushback has been from the package industry, and they don't like to change what they've been doing. And I guess they're talking about fractions of a penny per package differences, I suspect. And they just think, oh, no, we don't want to change our packaging. That may cost some more or what have you. And then I was thinking of negative nabobs as you were going through this, where you have all sorts of armchair quarterbacks telling you like, that won't work. And it does work because I've actually tested and tried it. So
Yep.
you're telling me it's not going to work. Oh, you can't get a mold to do that. And tell me specifically why you think I can't get molds that would handle this. There's molds for every other kind of configuration you could possibly imagine.
No, I was thinking, I was like, when these people are telling me this, and this is when I was real wet behind the ears. I didn't really know molding, but I just common sense. I'm like, what? How this is two pieces of plastic coming together to do something. We put a man on the moon. And you're telling me we can't figure out a way to make two pieces of plastic in the 21st century. We've done some great things as humans. I think we could do this. That's where my mindset was when they were telling me this. It just didn't make sense why it couldn't be done. And sometimes you just gotta prove them wrong.
And that's part of the journey for sure. And I was thinking also about the story of Dyson with the Dyson vacuum cleaner. And that was along about a 10-year run with something like 5,000 or 8,000 prototypes. And today he's a billionaire, but that wasn't set in stone. That was going to be the path. And he went choosing to attempt to license to all the major manufacturers. And there was a lot of pushback. And only in 2020 hindsight did he realize the fact that it doesn't use bags, it doesn't require vacuum bags. It was actually negative from their perspective because that was a profit center for them.
Yep.
You know, they didn't cost much to make those, and you'd have to have them over and over again. So that's one reason that they probably were pushing back on that.
Definitely one. It happens all the time. It's a common theme. Found that people generally don't like change for whatever reason, whether it's business or even personal aspects. They resist, and you just got to push through. That's the moral of the story. I really feel that you could learn so much along the way. There's product development, IP, intellectual property, in the business side, raising capital, all these things you can learn, but the X factor, I believe, is never, ever give up. You believe that you have something, you gotta keep on going, and you will succeed. Tenacity.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And some reading I had done some time back about the commonly accepted the fact that people generally don't like change. And why is it people inherently don't like change on so many different levels? And it always swings back to the caveman days, but our reptilian brain, the amygdala, is designed to keep us safe from harm and from death. And back in those days, if you weren't a member of the tribe and you were singular out there, then a saber-toothed tiger would find you an easy pick-off, so to speak. But so change was risky. In other words, doing the patterns that had worked and staying with the group and doing all the rest. But anytime if you were cast out or you were in a situation of change, then that was risk. And I think that our brains adapted to associate whatever we're doing right now as being safe and doing something different as being unsafe.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. That's it. I think the majority of people they're risk adverse. They want to stay and not deviate. That's where, like when you're putting on the golf course, I saw a study that you concentrate more on a par putt than a birdie putt. It's an interesting phenomenon that there's more time and effort in lining up for a par than a birdie. Because a birdie, okay, you're being rewarded, but if you miss the par, you're losing something. So funny analogy, but it's true. And that's why us crazy inventors are the ones that evolved society. Like, I have those people out there that want to take risks and do something a little crazier. And that pushes the envelope, that raises the bar.
I think that's absolutely true. So let me ask you, are SnapSlide lids currently being sold in the market, or are they still in development? And I presume that you're venturing the product yourself, and I think you may have referenced it earlier, but would you consider licensing the design? What are your thoughts where you are in the market now in development, availability, and then potential future directions with it?
Yeah, so I started with the model of licensing, and we had some success. We did successfully secure some licensing deals with some significantly large manufacturers in the field. As I was going through it, these companies, they move slow. And I'm a guy, I want to keep moving. I want to get it done. And I just decided when it was up for renewal that to take what I learned. And so since that time, I raised the capital that we needed to do and finished the development out. And now we're at the point where we're in discussions with some of the larger pharmacies and wholesalers across the nation, and ramping up production as we speak right now, getting all those I's dotted and T's crossed on the production side, securing the capital needed for production, and the business alliances on the customer side. So I expect I'd like to be launching in early next year, 2025. During this point, just revving up all the production. We need massive injection mold tool and be able to satisfy the volumes at the price point. So that's where we are now. Exciting time, but still excitingly stressful.
Thanks for sharing that. And that's not a too uncommon scenario too, that when companies do license, they do move slowly. And it takes them a while to get in the marketplace. Sometimes it takes them a year, even when they're genuinely interested, before they really tend to even move on it. But I'm generally a fan of licensing. You can do both directions, of course, but it depends on your circumstances and your goals of your business as what makes the most sense for you. So congratulations, raising capital is not an easy thing to do. So yeah, so that's fantastic. As we roll towards a close, I'd like to ask, are there any parting words that you'd like to leave us with?
Never give up. Said it before. I think that's the key. Your heart's in it. If you feel you have something, then ask it. You never give up. Listen to your gut. Don't listen to what others think or want you to do. Do what you think is the way. And more times than not, your gut's going to be right about a lot. And you'll learn. It's not going to be easy. It's a grind, but you will make it through on the other side. And it's quite the ride.
I think that's so true. And I've quoted often on the podcast where I call the 3 Ps: patience, perseverance, and persistence.
I like that.
Yeah, I've never met an inventor yet that successful inventor, let me put it that way, that didn't have plenty of all of that. And the other one is you were talking about essentially being careful to let others destroy your dreams or trying to prevent that. And I heard an expression that sounds funny, but I like it. It says, never let anybody should on you. Here's what you should do. I think I will decide what I should do. So
I like that. And you need people. You do need good people around you, other smart people that share the common vision, because you can't know it all or do it all. So you need to surround yourself with good people, but finding the right people is tough and takes time and a lot of failures along the way. You fail then, and then you see those billboards on the highway, the one I think it's Abe Lincoln, failed, and then died. And everybody knows Abe Lincoln. So you surround yourself with good people and you move forward. And never give up.
yeah, makes great sense to me. My last question is, how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions?
Website's SnapSlide.com. We're on Facebook. We just launched our social media last month. Facebook, SnapSlide, and Instagram, SnapSlide Packaging. So reach out there. You can follow us. If you want to shoot a contact on our about page on our website, it's for me. Just include my name and I'll get back to you. Always looking to talk with fellow inventors. So I'd be happy to hear from any of your listeners.
I so appreciate that. And you just mentioned it's a website, snapslide.com. And Facebook is SnapSlide Packaging. And I think you said Instagram also SnapSlide, right?
Reversed it. Pretty good, Alan. But Facebook is just SnapSlide. Instagram is SnapSlide Packaging.
Okay, I had them in reverse. There we go. Get it straight. And let me just say, I really enjoyed chatting with you today, and I'm excited to have had you on the podcast. And I'd like to reserve the opportunity, especially with what you've got going on with your launches, and maybe another 6 months or at most a year, probably sometime in early 2025 when you're getting your launch fully underway, to follow up and get back in touch with you and have another interview with you then.
Let's do it. I had fun. This was a good time. Whenever, well, I'm around. Let me know. I'd love to do it again.
That's fantastic. Again, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you, Alan. Appreciate you.
You bet. Recently, I spoke to an inventor who has a promising patent-pending invention that he's very excited about. Here's what he told me. Alan, I absolutely love inventing and creating new products, but I absolutely hate marketing. The thought of pitching it in front of a bunch of bigwigs at a company is frightening. I'm just not good at marketing. Does that sound familiar? Does that describe the way you feel too? If so, I have some good news for you. Really. Look, I'm an engineer by trade. And guess what? In the beginning, I absolutely sucked at marketing. But over time, I became quite good at it. Because marketing is a learnable skill that anyone can learn. No matter where you are, right now, I can teach you how to market your product effectively, how to craft a clear, concise, and compelling pitch for your product to grab the interest of companies. Now, you might be thinking, I just don't have the time to learn how to do that, right? Well, do you have 2 hours? Yep, 2 hours is all the time we'll need to get you up to speed with my Pitch Your Product audit. So if you're serious about getting your product into the market, just send me an email at alan@alanbeckley.com and put Pitch Your Product audit in the subject line. I'll reply back and we'll schedule a Zoom meeting to see if this is right for you. Again, email me at alan@alanbeckley.com and put in the subject line, Pitch Your Product audit. And I look forward to getting in touch with you. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.